Gold digger rejects a single dad, unaware he was a hidden real estate tycoon. The morning sun glinted off the glass facade of Prestige Properties, casting golden reflections across Tessa Morgan's immaculate desk. She adjusted her Prada glasses and checked her appearance one last time in her compact mirror. Perfect, as always. Her crimson lips curved into a practiced smile as she rehearsed the pitch she'd been refining for weeks. Today could be the day she finally landed the Blackwood account. $6 million portfolio, she whispered to herself, calculating the commission in her head. That's the kind of client that makes careers. The Prestige Properties office hummed with activity, but Tessa remained focused, scrolling through listings on her tablet. At 32, she had clawed her way to being the agency's second highest performer, a feat that required laser-like concentration on high-value targets and the ruthless elimination of distractions. In the cutthroat Manhattan real estate market, time wasted on small fish meant missed opportunities with whales. "Morning, Tessa," chirped Mia, the fresh-faced intern, who had been assigned to shadow her this week. "Coffee?" Tessa accepted the latte without looking up. "Any messages from the Blackwoods?" "No, but there's a walk-in waiting in the lobby. Says he's looking for a family home." Tessa's fingers paused over her screen. "Price range?" "He didn't exactly say, but..." Mia's voice trailed off. "But what?" Tessa snapped, finally looking up. "He doesn't look like our usual clientele." Tessa suppressed a sigh. This happened at least twice a week, dreamers wandering in off the street, wasting her time with fantasies about penthouses they could never afford. The agency director insisted they treat all potential clients with respect, but Tessa had developed a sixth sense for separating serious buyers from tire kickers. "Fine. 5 minutes." She strode into the lobby, clipboard in hand, her Louboutins clicking sharply against the marble floor. The man sitting there stood as she approached. He wore faded jeans, a simple navy button-down with the sleeves rolled up, and work boots that had seen better days. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and a day's stubble shadowed his jaw. Nothing about him screamed money. "Good morning, I'm Tessa Morgan." She extended her hand with her business smile firmly in place, even as mental calculations downgraded this meeting to a necessary inconvenience. "Daniel Reed." His handshake was firm, his voice quiet but measured. "Thanks for seeing me." Up close, Tessa noticed his eyes, a deep, thoughtful brown that held a calm intelligence. For a flickering moment she felt a strange compulsion to look closer, but she dismissed it as she gestured toward a small conference room. "So, Mr. Reed, what brings you to Prestige Properties today?" Her tone was professionally cordial but lacked the warmth she reserved for her premium clients. "I'm looking for a home for my daughter and me." He settled into a chair, completely at ease. "Something in a good school district, preferably with a backyard." "I see." Tessa's pen hovered over her notepad. "And your budget?" Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm still working that out. I'd like to see what's available in the more affordable range first." "Affordable?" The word echoed in Tessa's mind like a death knell for her commission. She glanced at her watch. 4 minutes since they'd entered the room. "Mr. Reed, I appreciate you coming in, but Prestige Properties specializes in luxury real estate. The most affordable properties in our portfolio start at $1.2 million. Her tone conveyed the subtext. "You're in the wrong place." "I understand," he said, surprising her with his unruffled response. "But I'm willing to consider properties across various price points. My daughter's happiness is my priority." Something in his manner made Tessa pause. Most people would have shown embarrassment or frustration at her subtle dismissal. Daniel Reed showed neither. "How old is your daughter?" The question slipped out before she could stop it, an unnecessary detour into personal territory. "Emma's 15. Smart kid, loves science and art. We've been renting since moving here last year, but it's time we found something permanent." A small, genuine smile softened his features when he mentioned his daughter, and for an inexplicable moment, Tessa felt a twinge of something. Not quite guilt, maybe curiosity. Her phone buzzed. A text from her boss, Blackwood's assistant, called. "Meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. Be prepared." Just like that, the moment evaporated. Tessa stood, gesturing toward the door with a polite but final smile. "Mr. Reed, given what you're looking for, I think you'd be better served by our associate." She pressed the intercom. "Mia, could you come assist Mr. Reed?" He's interested in our entry-level listings. Daniel's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in those observant eyes, recognition perhaps, of the dismissal being enacted. Of course, he said, standing. I appreciate your time, Miss Morgan. As Mia led him away, Tessa was already mentally rehearsing her presentation for the Blackwoods. By the time she reached her desk, Daniel Reed had been filed away in her mind under not worth following up. An hour later, as she prepared to leave for a showing at a waterfront property, she passed the smaller conference room, where Mia was still with Daniel Reed. The intern was enthusiastically showing him listings on a tablet, and to Tessa's surprise he was engaged in the conversation, asking thoughtful questions. Jason Peters, another agent and Tessa's occasional happy hour companion, sidled up beside her. Who's the charity case? Tessa smirked. Just some single dad looking for an affordable home. I passed him to Mia. Good practice for her to learn there's no commission in dreams. Jason laughed. Bet he's just killing time in the air conditioning. Those types always are, right? He said he wanted to see what's available, as if he could afford anything we handle. Tessa rolled her eyes, her voice carrying slightly in the open office layout. She didn't notice Daniel's head turn slightly in their direction, didn't see the way his expression tightened almost imperceptibly as he caught fragments of their conversation. She was too busy describing her upcoming meeting with the Blackwoods, already dismissing the man in worn jeans from her thoughts. As Tessa grabbed her portfolio and headed for the door, she passed Daniel in the lobby. He was thanking Mia, who had given him several property listings to consider. I'll definitely be in touch, he told the intern. His manner warm and apprecious. Tessa nodded curtly as she passed, already mentally rehearsing her opening lines for the Blackwood meeting. Let Mia waste her time on walk-ins. Tessa Morgan had bigger fish to fry. After all, in this business, you had to be ruthlessly efficient with your time and energy. And Daniel Reed, with his worn boots and talk of affordable options, simply didn't make the cut. What she didn't see was Daniel lingering in the lobby after she left, his tired eyes following her departure with a mixture of disappointment and thoughtful calculation that might have given her pause, had she bothered to notice. Did you see those boots? I swear they came from a discount store, Tessa laughed, spinning in her leather chair. It was Friday evening, and most of the office had cleared out except for Jason and herself. They shared a bottle of champagne, a gift from a client whose penthouse had just closed, celebrating the end of another week. The affordable home shopper, Jason snickered, refilling their glasses. Those types finish me. They walk in here like we're a mall kiosks, selling costume jewelry. Tessa's laughter echoed across the empty office, as she mimicked Daniel's voice. I'm shopping for a place for my daughter. As if Prestige Properties handles starter homes for single dads with budget constraints. She didn't notice the figure that paused by the glass partition, just outside the office door. Daniel Reed stood in the shadows of the hallway, a manila folder in his hand. He'd returned to drop off some financial pre-approval paperwork Mia had requested, only to find the young intern gone and Tessa's mocking voice carrying through the quiet office. His face remained impassive as he listened, years of business negotiations having taught him to mask his reactions. But his eyes, had Tessa bothered to look, revealed a flicker of disappointment that quickly hardened into something cooler, more calculating. He made a mental note, not of anger but of assessment. Another data point in his quiet evaluation. God. I hope the Blackwoods sign tomorrow, Tessa continued, oblivious to her audience. I'm so tired of wasting time on pretenders when there are real clients out there. Daniel slipped the folder into the mail slot marked Internship Program and walked away, his footsteps silent on the plush carpet. Inside, Jason raised his glass to filtering out the noise and focusing on what matters. Tessa clinked her glass against his. Speaking of which, have you heard about the foreign investor who's supposed to be in town? The mysterious client everyone's talking about. Jason leaned forward. Pierce mentioned something. Asian billionaire? Or was it Middle Eastern? Nobody knows for sure. Tessa's eyes gleamed with excitement. But word is they're looking to offload over $200 million in assets. Can you imagine the commission on that? Every agency in the city is trying to track them down. Jason whistled. Well, I plan to be first in line when they surface, Tessa said, checking her reflection in her compact mirror and reapplying her lipstick. I've already started compiling a portfolio of our most exclusive properties. What neither of them knew was that 10 blocks away, in a modest hotel suite, Daniel Reed sat at a desk covered with documents, real estate profiles, and detailed notes on various agencies and agents throughout the city. His laptop displayed a spreadsheet tracking interactions, attitudes, and responsiveness from his visits, posing as a budget-conscious client. Next to his laptop sat a photo of a teenage girl with his eyes and a bright smile. He glanced at it, a reminder of why his standards were so exacting. "What do you think, Emma?" he murmured to the photo. "Who deserves our trust?" Daniel had built his fortune by understanding people, knowing when someone saw him as a person versus a payday. After his wife died 3 years ago, he'd become even more discerning about who he allowed into his and Emma's life. The move to New York was meant to be a fresh start, but also an opportunity to establish a new headquarters for Reed Developments, his privately held real estate investment firm that few knew was worth billions. His phone buzzed with a message from his financial advisor. "Bloomberg mentioned rumors about your NYC expansion. Interest heating up, keeping identity secure as requested." Daniel smiled slightly. The whispers were starting, just as he'd planned. Let the agency scramble to find the mysterious foreign investor, while he completed his evaluation from the shadows. He added Tessa Morgan's name to a column labeled "Eliminated" and made another note beside Mia Chen, "Genuine. Thorough, follows up regardless of perceived client value." The next morning, as Tessa prepared for her meeting with the Blackwoods, Mia approached her desk hesitantly. "Mr. Reed called. He left a message for you," she said, holding out a pink message slip. Tessa barely glanced at it. "What does he want now? More affordable options?" "Actually, he asked about a commercial property on Fifth Avenue. The Wilson Building." That made Tessa pause. The Wilson Building was listed at $28 million. "Probably just curious," she said dismissively, tossing the message into her drawer without reading it. "Some people like to dream big on weekends. I'll be busy with the Blackwoods all day." She missed the flicker of confusion on Mia's face, just as she'd missed the observant gaze of Daniel Reed the day before. In her single-minded pursuit of what she thought mattered, Tessa Morgan was blind to the fortune slipping through her fingers, one dismissive comment at a time. Daniel Reed adjusted his well-worn jeans and deliberately scuffed boots before entering Landmark Properties, the fourth real estate agency on his list. Over the past 2 weeks, he had visited 12 different firms across Manhattan, each time presenting himself as the same modest single father looking for an affordable home. "What I'm learning about people in this city," he murmured to Emma, as they walked toward the entrance, "could fill a book." His 15-year-old daughter smiled knowingly. "Another undercover mission? Just 15 minutes, he promised. Then we'll get ice cream." Emma nodded, tucking her physics textbook under her arm. Unlike most teenagers, she understood her father's methods. She'd watched him build Reed Developments from the ground up, always operating in the shadows, always testing character before credentials. Inside Landmark Properties, the receptionist's eyes flickered briefly over Daniel's casual attire before offering a warm smile. "How can I help you today?" "I'm looking to speak with an agent about housing options," Daniel replied, deliberately vague about his budget. "Of course. Let me get someone for you right away." Minutes later, Daniel found himself sitting across from Valerie Chen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who treated him with the same attentiveness she would show any client. "So, Mr. Reed," she said after their introductions, "tell me what you're looking for in a home." "Something for my daughter and me. Good school district is priority." He deliberately kept his answers short, watching her response. Unlike Tessa Morgan, Valerie didn't immediately probe his price range or make assumptions. Instead, she asked thoughtful questions about his daughter's interests, their lifestyle, and what would make a house feel like home. "Budget is obviously an important factor," she eventually said, "but before we get to that, I'd like to understand what matters most to you both." Daniel nodded, making a mental note. After 30 minutes of genuine conversation, he thanked her and promised to be in touch, leaving his contact information. Outside, Emma raised an eyebrow. "Well, she passed the first test," Daniel smiled. "Let's see if she follows up regardless of commission potential." The next day, at Reed Development's temporary office, a nondescript suite in Midtown that deliberately bore no company name, Daniel reviewed his notes with his CFO, Marcus. "So far, 3 agencies have shown genuine interest, despite my appearance," Daniel said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Landmark Properties is the most promising." The agent there, Valerie Chen, sent a thoughtful follow-up email this morning, with properties across various price points. Marcus nodded. And prestige properties? Daniel's expression hardened slightly. Complete failure. The senior agent, Tessa Morgan, couldn't dismiss me fast enough. Didn't even read the message I left about the Wilson building. The one we're considering for headquarters? That's a $28 million property. Exactly. She classified me as a non-prospect from the moment she saw me. Daniel tapped his pen thoughtfully. Though their intern Mia showed promise, followed up twice, even knowing I might not be a big commission. What about your identity? Still secure? Daniel nodded. The rumors about the mysterious foreign investor are working perfectly. Every agency is chasing shadows while I observe how they treat everyday clients. Over the next week, Daniel returned to each agency on his shortlist with slightly different scenarios. At some, he inquired about commercial properties. At others, including prestige, he called to ask specific questions that would reveal the agent's knowledge and integrity. Tessa never returned his calls. Each time, Mia would apologetically explain that Miss Morgan was busy with priority clients. Twice, Daniel overheard her being instructed to handle the time waste. Meanwhile, Valerie Chen at Landmark not only responded personally to every inquiry, but invited him to tour properties across various price points without pressuring him about budget. She even sent Emma information about science programs at nearby schools. On his final undercover visit to prestige properties, Daniel arrived wearing the same worn jeans but carrying an expensive leather portfolio, a subtle test to see if anyone would notice the contradiction. The receptionist barely glanced up. Mia, however, greeted him warmly. Mr. Reed, I've found some more options that might work for you and your daughter. As she showed him listings, Daniel noticed Tessa watching from her office, frowning slightly at the leather portfolio before turning away dismissively. That evening, Daniel finalized his decision. He called his executive team together in the temporary office. It's time, he announced. We're moving forward with the full launch next week at the Industry Mixer. Valerie Chen, from Landmark, will handle our residential properties. And I want to offer Mia Chen, from Prestige, an entry position. And the Prestige Properties blacklist? His COO asked. Daniel's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held firm resolve. Confirm it. Especially Tessa Morgan. He looked out at the Manhattan skyline, where the Wilson building stood prominently among the skyscrapers. Let's see how quickly rumors of the real estate mystery man spread once we make our announcement. What no one at Prestige Properties knew was that the mysterious investor everyone sought had been sitting in their lobby in worn jeans all along, and that their treatment of him had already cost them millions. The Grand Meridian Hotel's ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and the careful optimism of New York's elite real estate professionals. Tessa arrived early, her burgundy dress selected specifically for this event, the most exclusive industry mixer of the season. Everyone who matters in Manhattan real estate will be here tonight, her boss Lawrence Pierce reminded the Prestige team as they entered. Including, rumor has it, the mystery investor everyone's been talking about. Tessa felt a flutter of excitement. After losing the Blackwood account last week, they'd unexpectedly signed with a rival agency. She needed this win. She'd spent the morning perfecting her pitch for the elusive client, with a $200 million portfolio. Remember, Pierce continued, this is about relationships. Be on your game. Champagne flowed as agents from competing firms circled each other like well-dressed sharks. Tessa worked the room methodically, exchanging pleasantries and business cards, while scanning for unfamiliar faces who might be her target. Have you heard anything about the mystery client? She asked Jason, as they clinked glasses near the bar. Only that he's about to make a major announcement. Some kind of new development company. At precisely 8 o'clock, the hotel manager tapped a microphone at the front of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. It is my great pleasure to introduce our special guest this evening, though I suspect many of you have been trying to meet him for weeks. Tessa straightened, her attention laser-focused on the stage. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Reed Developments, Mr. Daniel Reed. The crowd applauded politely, as a man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit stepped onto the stage. Beside him stood a teenage girl in a simple but elegant blue dress. Tessa froze, champagne glass halfway to her lips. The confident man addressing the room couldn't possibly be But it was the same calm brown eyes, now surveying the crowd with quiet authority. The same composed demeanor, now commanding the attention of every power player in Manhattan real estate. Many of you have heard rumors, Daniel began, his voice carrying effortlessly across the suddenly silent room, about a mysterious investor looking to place significant assets in the New York market. He smiled slightly, and Tessa felt her stomach drop. Those rumors were partially true. Reed Developments is indeed launching a major initiative in Manhattan. Over the next year, we'll be investing approximately $300 million in commercial and residential properties across the city. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Tessa felt Pierce's eyes boring into her. $300 million. Not $200 million. Even bigger than the rumors suggest. What some of you don't know, Daniel continued, is that I've spent the past month personally evaluating agencies across the city. He gestured to his daughter beside him. Emma and I visited numerous firms, posing as modest clients with limited budgets. We wanted to see who would treat us with respect and professionalism regardless of our perceived value. The room went deadly quiet as understanding dawned. Tessa felt the blood drain from her face. I'm pleased to announce that Reed Developments will be partnering exclusively with Landmark Properties for all our residential listings. Tessa watched in horror as Valerie Chen stepped forward to shake Daniel's hand while cameras flashed. Additionally, Daniel continued, I'd like to recognize a few individuals whose integrity stood out during our evaluation. He named 5 agents from different firms, none from Prestige Properties, commending their professionalism and announcing they would be handling various aspects of Reed Development's portfolio. Finally, Daniel said, I'd like to introduce the newest member of our team. The crowd shifted as a young woman in a simple black dress made her way to the stage. Tessa's jaw dropped. Mia Chen will be joining Reed Developments as our new associate residential specialist. Mia, the intern Tessa had repeatedly ordered to handle the time waster, blushed as she shook Daniel's hand, her expression a mixture of shock and delight. Pierce turned to Tessa, his face thunderous. That's the broke dad you passed off to an intern? The one asking about the Wilson building that you ignored? Tessa couldn't speak. Across the room, Daniel's eyes met hers briefly, not with anger but with something worse, indifference. She was simply irrelevant to his plans. As the formal presentation concluded, the room erupted in conversation. Agents who had dismissed Daniel now scrambled to introduce themselves, but his inner circle formed a protective barrier around him. Tessa watched, rooted to the spot as Lawrence Pierce pushed past her to attempt damage control, approaching Daniel with an outstretched hand and desperate smile. Daniel spoke briefly with Pierce, his manner polite but firm. Pierce's shoulders slumped as he returned to the Prestige team. Well? Jason whispered. We're blacklisted, Pierce hissed. Every Reed Developments property, over 50 current holdings and hundreds more in the pipeline, explicitly unavailable to Prestige Properties agents. He turned to Tessa, fury barely contained. Conference room. 8 a.m. tomorrow. We'll be discussing your future with the company. As the evening wound down, Tessa caught sight of Daniel and Emma, leaving with their new team, including Mia and Valerie Chen. The young intern who had been at the bottom of Prestige hierarchy that morning was now linked to the biggest real estate deal of the year. Tessa watched them go, the magnitude of what she'd lost finally sinking in. Not just the commission, though, that would have set her up for years, but her reputation in an industry where relationships were everything. All because she couldn't see past a pair of worn jeans to the man wearing them. Tessa's hands trembled as she placed her security badge on Lawrence Pierce's desk. The morning meeting had been brief and brutal. No second chances, no opportunity to explain, just termination papers and the stern directive to clean out her desk by noon. Your judgment cost this firm the biggest client opportunity in our history, Pierce had said, his voice arctic. The reputational damage alone. Now, as she packed her designer office supplies into a cardboard box, the financial reality began to sink in. She pulled up the real estate news on her phone. Every industry publication was covering the Reed Developments announcement. The numbers made her physically ill. Reed Developments to invest $300 million in New York properties. Exclusive partnership with Landmark Properties expected to generate over $15 million in commissions. Additional partnerships with select agents for commercial portfolio worth estimated $8 million in fees. $15 million in commissions. Commissions that could have gone to Prestige, to her. Money that would have propelled her career into the stratosphere, secured her dream apartment in Tribeca, funded the lifestyle she'd been working towards since she first entered real estate. All lost because she'd dismissed a man in worn jeans. As if the universe were twisting the knife, her phone buzzed with a text from Jason. "Did you see the latest? Reed just acquired the Wilson building. The one your broke dad was asking about. 30 many others cash deal." Tessa leaned against her desk, suddenly lightheaded. The Wilson building, the property Daniel had specifically inquired about, the message she tossed in a drawer without reading. Her phone buzzed again with an industry alert. Reed Developments announces plans to renovate 12 residential buildings in Manhattan and Brooklyn. Projected budget. Each headline was another blow. Not just the initial deals, but a pipeline that would generate commissions for years to come. Commissions that would now flow to Valerie Chen and others who had passed Daniel Reed's character test. "Need any help?" Tessa looked up to see Sandra, the receptionist, standing awkwardly in her doorway. "No, I'm almost done," Tessa replied, trying to maintain dignity. Sandra hesitated. "Everyone's talking about what happened with Daniel Reed." "I'm sure they are." Tessa continued packing, her movements mechanical. "Thing is," Sandra continued cautiously, "he came in more times than you knew. Always asked for you specifically. But after that second time..." Tessa froze. "What second time?" Sandra looked uncomfortable. "When you told me to say you were with important clients if he called again. Remember? You said you didn't have time for charity cases, and to direct him to me." The memory hit Tessa like a physical blow. Yes, she had said that, casually discarding a client who didn't fit her preconceived notion of value. "How many times did he contact me?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "At least 6, called about different properties each time. The Wilson building, that commercial space on 57th, the Franklin Street development." Sandra shrugged. "Mia handled most of it. She's the only one who ever called him back. 6 attempts. 6 opportunities to recognize what was happening, to simply treat a human being with basic professional courtesy, regardless of his apparent means." As Tessa carried her box through the office, she felt the weight of stares and whispers. Yesterday, she had been the rising star of Prestige Properties. Today, she was a cautionary tale. Outside, the spring sunshine felt like a mockery. She hailed a cab, giving the driver her address in a voice she barely recognized as her own. Her phone continued to buzz with news alerts, each one more devastating than the last. Reed Development's CEO reveals tested multiple agencies with modest personas. "We wanted partners who value people, not just portfolios," says Reed. Landmark Property stock jumps 15% following exclusive partnership announcement. And then, the headline that broke her completely. Former Prestige Properties intern, Mia Chen, joins Reed Development's executive team with projected annual compensation over $400,000. For the intern she had treated as an afterthought, as little more than a coffee fetcher. When she reached her apartment, the one she now realized she could no longer afford, Tessa finally let the tears come, not just for the lost income, but for what the whole experience revealed about her. About who she had become in pursuit of success. Her phone rang, an unfamiliar number. For a brief, wild moment, she imagined it might be Daniel Reed calling to say it had all been a lesson, that she was forgiven, that she would have another chance. "Hello?" she answered, her voice hopeful despite herself. "Ms. Morgan, this is Stephanie from Manhattan Luxury Rentals. I'm calling about your lease renewal." Reality crashed back. Without her job, without her commission, she couldn't afford the renewal. Another consequence rippling outward. As the leasing agent continued talking, Tessa gazed out her window at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Daniel Reed was building an empire, one that would have included her if she'd simply shown basic human decency. She thought about Mia, who would now be working in a corner office with a view like this. Perhaps even better. Mia, who had done nothing more complicated than treat everyone with the same respect, regardless of their apparent means. The lesson couldn't have been more clear or more painful. In her relentless pursuit of wealth, Tessa Morgan had revealed a poverty of character that ultimately cost her everything. 3 weeks passed in a blur of rejection emails and dwindling bank account balances. Tessa's reputation had spread through Manhattan's real estate circles like wildfire. The agent who had insulted Daniel Reed, the woman whose arrogance had cost her firm millions. No one was hiring. She sat in a coffee shop across from her old office building, nursing an Americano she could barely afford. Her phone displayed yet another rejection message. While your experience is impressive, we don't believe you'd be a good cultural fit for our team at this time. Translation: we know what happened with Reed Developments. Through the window, she spotted a familiar figure exiting the building that housed Reed Developments' new headquarters, the Wilson Building, the very property she had ignored Daniel's inquiry about. It was Mia, looking polished and confident in a tailored suit, a far cry from the hesitant intern of a month ago. Something inside Tessa shifted, not bitterness, though she'd felt plenty of that lately, but something more complicated, almost like respect. Mia had earned her position through genuine kindness, not calculated networking or status seeking, but simple human decency. The quality Tessa had dismissed as naivety turned out to be Mia's greatest strength. Tessa's phone buzzed with a news alert: Reed Developments to renovate historic Hamilton Heights apartment complex, preserving affordable units while upgrading facilities. The article featured a photo of Daniel and Emma Reed at the property, speaking with current residents. Even with success and wealth now publicly displayed, he appeared as genuine as he had in worn jeans in the Prestige Properties lobby. A wild, desperate idea took root in Tessa's mind. The next morning she stood outside the Hamilton Heights complex, having spent her last Uber budget to get there. She had researched Daniel's schedule through industry news, learning he would be on site reviewing renovation plans. For nearly 3 hours she waited, rehearsing what she would say. Finally, a black Tesla pulled up, and Daniel emerged with Emma and 2 architects. Tessa's heart hammered as she approached them. "Mr. Reed, could I speak with you for a moment?" Daniel turned, his expression shifting from surprise to neutral politeness. "Ms. Morgan." Emma glanced between them, recognition flickering in her eyes. "I won't take much of your time," Tessa said, her practiced speech evaporating under his steady gaze. "I just wanted to apologize. What I did, how I treated you, it was inexcusable." Daniel studied her for a moment. "Let's walk," he said finally, motioning to Emma to continue with the architects. They strolled in silence along the perimeter of the property until Daniel spoke. "Why are you here, Miss Morgan?" "Really?" The question cut through her prepared platitudes. "Because I lost everything," she admitted, the raw truth spilling out. "My job, my apartment, my reputation. And at first I was angry at you for setting me up, for testing me when I didn't know I was being tested." Daniel raised an eyebrow but remained silent. "But then I realized," Tessa continued, "you didn't set me up. You just gave me an opportunity to be decent, and I failed." Over and over again, they reached a small playground where children from the apartment complex were playing. "See them?" Daniel gestured toward the children. "Their families were going to be priced out when this building went up market. One of our renovation conditions is maintaining affordable units." He turned to face her fully. "This isn't just business for me. Every property, every deal affects real people's lives." "I understand that now," Tessa said quietly. "And I'm not asking for a job or a second chance. I just needed you to know that I see what I did wrong." To her surprise, Daniel's expression softened slightly. "The world has enough successful people without principles, Ms. Morgan. What it needs are people who remember that behind every transaction is a human being." "I won't forget again," she promised. "Good," he nodded firmly. "Because that's why you failed, not because I wasn't rich." His eyes held hers steadily. "You failed because you weren't kind." The words hit with the force of absolute truth. Daniel checked his watch. "I need to get back to my meeting." "Of course," Tessa stepped aside. "Thank you for listening." As he walked away, she called after him. "The work you're doing here, preserving affordable housing, it's important." Daniel paused, looking back. "Would you have thought so a month ago?" The question lingered in the air between them, requiring no answer. Tessa watched him rejoin Emma and the architects, the teenage girl smiling as her father returned. What struck Tessa wasn't bitterness over the wealth and success she'd lost access to, but something more profound, the realization that Daniel Reed's true wealth had never been in his bank accounts, but in his integrity. As she walked away from the Hamilton Heights complex, Tessa's phone buzzed with another rejection from a real estate firm. She deleted it without reading it fully. Instead, she pulled up a different listing. A small property management company in Queens seeking an assistant manager. The salary was barely a third of what she once earned, but the company's mission statement emphasized community development and ethical business practices. For the first time in weeks, Tessa felt something like hope as she composed her application. She would start over, this time building a career on something more substantial than the pursuit of wealth. Meanwhile, across the city, Daniel Reed continued his work, reshaping not just Manhattan's skyline, but the real estate industry itself, empowering honest agents, creating ethical developments, and teaching his daughter through example that character would always matter more than status. The lesson Tessa Morgan had learned at tremendous cost. Emma Reed was learning through her father's quiet wisdom. In business and in life, how you treat people when you think they have nothing to offer reveals everything about who you truly are.